All right, so this is the last video for this week. I'm going to go over exporting our project from Photoshop and posting it on Open Lab and then submitting on Brightspace. So I know we've covered a lot so far. There's been a lot of me talking and a lot of video content for this week. But as I've said, this is just the first week. In subsequent weeks, I'll have shorter, more succinct videos for you guys, and we'll spend more time on the creative stuff. Anyway, we're just gonna get some stuff set up and then submit our assignment. So I'm gonna open up Photoshop again. This is kind of where I left off. It's not the most complicated composition in the world, but it's kind of nice. So again, whatever you make, just make something kind of interesting visually. Something that combines shape and color in an interesting way. I'm gonna export this image. So as I mentioned in the previous videos, right now we have this PSD file. The point of a PSD file is it saves all of our edits. So it saves these layers, and it means that we can open it up and we can edit it again. But the file is bigger than it needs to be just to display an image. So if we look at the file size, it's actually not that large. 274 kilobytes is not that bad for an image. You can easily share this on your phone. You can text it to somebody. You can put it on the internet. But as we make more complicated projects, you'll see that that image, that size, the file size is going to get much, much bigger. The other thing is that if you send somebody a PSD, they're just not going to be able to see the image. It's not designed to be viewed on most devices in most contexts. What we want to do is we want to export what we've created using Photoshop in a different format that is used on websites, on your phone, different things like that. We do want to be able to kind of compare different image sizes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about file size for just a moment. And I'll probably repeat this at some point. But it's very important for creating digital stuff. So I'm going to bring out my notepad for a second just so I can kind of show my work here. So in the lecture where I talked about image data, we talked about bits and bytes. So remember, the smallest amount of data that a computer works with is 1 bit. This is a tiny little switch, and it can only have 2 values. It is going to be 0 or 1. That's the smallest amount of data that you can have. And you're never going to create a file that is that small. It's not even possible. A file just to exist is going to be larger than that. So a bit is 1 piece of data. A byte, so it's a byte equals 8 bits. And as we know from our previous lecture, that can represent 0 to 255 numbers. So that's kind of the amount of data that you can represent, something between 0 and 255, just like a simple number, a letter, different pieces of information. So 1 byte is very small. 1 byte equals 8 bits. Okay. After a byte, we have different amounts of bytes to make up a file. So most of the files that you'll use day to day are either going to be in kilobytes, megabytes, or gigabytes. And if you're not familiar with those prefixes, you might not know which one of those is bigger. So let's talk about that. So 1 kilobyte, a kilo stands for 1,000. So 1 kilobyte equals 1,000 bytes. Let's put a little comma here. Okay, so 1,000 bytes. So that's a lot of data. 1 kilobyte is 1,000 bytes. That's a lot of data, but it's not really that much. If we save this, I'm going to save this text file. So all it's got on it is what I've written so far. Let's save that in here. And let's call this bytes.txt. I'm going to save that text file. Let's see how big that is. So bytes.txt, right now it's 1 kilobyte. So just to save this much information takes 1 kilobyte, which is 1,000 bytes. So just those characters on the screen is already 1 kilobyte. So a kilobyte is a lot of bytes, but it's not very much data compared to a typical computer. So 1 megabyte is equal to 1,000 kilobytes. Okay, I keep spelling this wrong. 1 megabyte is 1,000 kilobytes. So it's 1,000 times 1,000 bytes. So a megabyte is a good amount of data. That's like a good sized image, a short MP3 song file. Most images that you send, that you take on your phone and send to your friends, is going to be like 3 megabytes, maybe 5 megabytes. It depends on the quality of the image. So that's a good amount of information. 1 gigabyte, this is where we start to get into large file territory. That's 1,000 megabytes. So a gigabyte is like a lot of data. That's like a file with lots of stuff in it. For Photoshop, it might be the size of like a short movie. A movie actually would probably be around a gigabyte, like a movie that you watch on Netflix. It might be like 300 megabytes or something like that, but it could be up to a gigabyte. When you start to talk about like video games, those start to be like, a typical video game is probably like at least a gigabyte, but sometimes maybe many more gigabytes to save on your computer. But anyway, that's our basic breakdown of file sizes. So kilo is, kind of typical for small files like text files, small images. Megabyte is larger images and audio files. Gigabyte is like video files and video games. I'll kind of keep reviewing that as we go through the semester. Okay, so let's close that. So we've got our Photoshop document. So what we want to do is we want to save images that we can post on the internet. So to do that, we go to File and we go to Export. And we're going to go to Export As. And we have some options here. This is going to bring up a separate dialog box. We can't quite see the whole thing on my screen, but that's okay. I'm going to hide myself as we look at this. So you have some settings here. You have the format. We're going to start with JPEG. JPEG is sort of a smaller image format. You can notice there's 3 options here: PNG, JPEG, and GIF. We'll go over all of them at some point. If we go to PNG, you can see the file size is actually smaller. It's 5.3 kilobytes. That's because I don't have a lot of data here. With JPEG, it's a little bit bigger, but we can also change the quality. So if we have a low quality JPEG, it's 7 kilobytes. A high quality JPEG is 11 kilobytes. Either way, it's pretty small. You can also compare the format. So if I go to 2 up here, I can look at different formats. And so I can see how it'll affect the look. I can zoom in. But because there's not very much data, we're not going to see a lot of difference in quality here. When we go over this again next week, we'll see a lot bigger difference in quality. So I'm going to go with the JPEG, and I don't really need super high quality. You can see nothing really changes if I change the quality. So let's go with low quality, and everything else we're going to leave the same, and we're just going to click Export. That brings up this window that we're familiar with. It looks like there's no files in here, but that's just because there are no JPEG files. There are other files in here. So I'm just going to save this as Photoshop intro.jpg. I'm going to click Save, and that's all we have to do here. I'm going to save this again and minimize this and go back to the files. And so now you can see I have this Photoshop intro.jpg. That's a JPEG file. It's 8 kilobytes. You can see it's a lot smaller than our Photoshop file. And that's what we want because that makes it easier to share with other people. It takes up less space on the computer. It takes less time to download. And so it's more appropriate for sending somebody on their phone or publishing on the internet. Okay, so now we've got the final images and files that we need to submit our project for this week. So I'm going to go back to the browser, and we're going to go over the Open Lab for a moment. So if you have not used the Open Lab before, you will not see your name here. I'm going to log out for a second so you'll see what it looks like. What you'll see when you look at our page is just something like this. And so if you've never used the Open Lab before, the first thing you're going to do is click Sign Up here. I can't do this because I already have an account, but when you sign up, it's pretty straightforward. You have to make a username. You can choose whatever you want. If it's not your name, I will see when you submit what your name is. So you can choose something that's not your name if you prefer, but you can't change that. So if you use Open Lab for other courses, you are going to be stuck with that username. So just be careful there. You can change the way it shows up on different places, but you can't change the actual username that you create. So, just make something that you are happy to stick with. Once you do that, your name will show up down here under blog authors. And if you want, you can add a little icon for yourself. And once you've created an account to post on the blog, you have to click to join the class. So you can go here to the Open Lab page for the site. And if you're logged in, there'll be a button right here that says join. Just click on that and it'll add you to the blog members. Okay, I'm gonna log back in. It's gonna use this repass thing when you log in or create an account. And this is your BMCC credentials. So it's not your CUNY first credentials like you use for Brightspace. It's your BMCC credentials like you use for your email. If you have any issues with that, let me know and we can troubleshoot. I'm just gonna log in. I have my username and password saved in the browser. The Open Lab is not always the fastest, but it usually works pretty well. Okay, so we're gonna make our first post. The Open Lab uses WordPress. WordPress is a very, very popular web publishing platform. You may have used it before. If you haven't, you probably will use it at some point in the future. Something like some huge amount of websites use WordPress. I think it's like, let's just Google it. How many sites use WordPress? 43.6% of all websites on the internet use WordPress according to AI. Let's see where AI got that from. Okay, a few different sources. Lots and lots of websites. Okay, so it's a really popular platform. So if you've never used it before, it's worth learning. But we're just gonna get started with the basics. We'll kind of cover more stuff as we do more, but I just wanna make a post. So if I hover over this plus button, you can see you can make a new post. You can also add media. If you just click the plus button, it's gonna create a new post. So you can title the post and add content here. It's asking us to select a category. To select a category and change other settings, you can use the menu. So if I click on this button right here, this opens this menu on the side. And if I want to change the category, I can just go down here to categories, and you can see there are categories for different things that we're going to create throughout the semester. This is a weekly blog post, and it's related to, where is it? I don't have a category for image. So let's add a category for image. And I'm going to add that new category. I've added the category so you'll be able to put it in there. So choose image and weekly blog post. So it actually is going to be multiple categories. You can see we have animation, audio, creative brief, final project, programming. We're not going to do this semester, so you can ignore that. Website, you can see there. So that's the category. I'll update those. And then we're just going to add the title. So we'll just put, what did I call this assignments? I've got to go back to the Open Lab to see this. Let's go here. Oh, you know what? This is in Brightspace, actually. Let's go to Brightspace. Let's go to assignments. And let's turn on learner view. Okay. Oh, whoops. Now I have to go back to assignments. Okay, so you can see blog post 1 here. This is just our first Photoshop composition. Okay. So this is where we're going to submit it. I'll leave this here for a second. So let's call this my composition. If you have a name for it, feel free to use whatever name you want. And what we're going to do here is add the image. So to add an image in WordPress, you can either drag and drop the image. So if you have your File Explorer open, you can just drag this in here like that. And it'll add the image here. If you want to do it through the UI, you can hit plus here and click image and then upload. And then you can just find the image on your computer. So there's our JPEG image. Notice the PSD doesn't show up here because we can't upload a PSD to a blog. Okay, so there's our composition. So then every post should have some text. For the weekly blog posts, it can be pretty short, just a sentence or two about what we're looking at. For the projects, there's a whole breakdown of what you have to write. So let's just write a couple sentences. So this is my composition created in Photoshop. This is the first time I used Photoshop. That might not be true for everybody, but if so, that might be something you can remark on. I chose to use layer blending to create a blend of colors from a yellow and blue rectangle. So this is just a very straightforward description of what we're looking at. But when we do these posts, what we want to do is practice getting good at documentation. Documentation is very, very important for working in multimedia and digital media. It's how we show our process. It's how we show the work that we do. The final product is important, but the process of how we got there is also very important for people to be able to see that we actually, know what we're doing, that we know how to make things work, that we understand the tools that we are using, all of those things. So once I've got that all set up, that's pretty much it. That's what these posts, these weekly posts are going to be like, just an image and a couple sentences, nothing too crazy. We're going to click publish over here. It makes us confirm, so we're going to click publish again. And that's going to publish the website on the blog. So if you go to view post, you're going to see your blog post. And then if you go to the posts feed, you're going to see your post in the feed. So we'll see everything that everybody is working on. And this is, published now. So if you click on the post and you look at the URL bar in Chrome up here, you're going to see there's a dedicated URL just for that post. And that is what you have to submit on the Open Lab. Make sure you do this correctly. If you submit a link that is not the correct link, so for example, I can go back to the editing site and I can edit my post here. But other people can't see this. If I copy this link, and I'm going to open up an incognito window in Chrome. So I'm going to go to Chrome, go to incognito. So it's not going to be logged in anymore. If I try to go to this link that you sent me, this is what I'm going to see. Because it's not a link to something that's published, it's a link to something that you edited. This might seem like not that interesting, but this is an important part of what we're learning in this class, is the difference between editing an image or editing a post and actually viewing the post and publishing the post. In order to create media and to share media and to understand how media works, these are the things that we have to be able to do. So I'm going to close this. So you do not want to submit this link. You will not get your points for that if you don't. What you want to submit is the published link, which looks like this. So just grab that link there. You can hit Control-C, or you can right-click and go to copy. And you're going to submit that on Brightspace along with your Photoshop PSD. Okay, let's go back to Brightspace. This is the last step, I promise. I know there's a lot of steps. It's part of what makes this what it is. Okay. Okay. So to submit our first assignment, this is blog post 1. We're going to click on here. Each assignment has a rubric. So this will tell you what you need to do for the assignment and how many points each part is worth. So there's some instructions. Make your first post on the Open Lab, include an exported image of your first Photoshop composition, submit a link to the Open Lab post and your PSD file. In the rubric, so the blog post, just creating the blog post is 10 points. So if you made a blog post, you get 10 points. Exported media, if you made the image and put it on the blog post, you get 10 points. Edit file, if you submit your PSD file and you submit the correct file. If you submit a JPEG, that doesn't count. If you submit your PSD file and it is the same file that you used to export the JPEG, that's how you get credit there. Writing, you get 5 points for writing a 1 or 2 sentence description of the project. The writing has to be clear and using correct grammar. If you don't use correct spelling, capitalization, punctuation, you won't get that credit. Link. If you submit the link correctly, you will get 5 points. Okay, so to submit the assignment, first we're going to add our Photoshop file. So click Add File, go to My Computer, go to Upload, and then find your Photoshop file. So you can go to Documents, go to the project, and then find the Photoshop file and open that. So if you don't upload a PSD file here, you will not get credit for this component of the assignment. Okay, then in the comments, we're just going to paste the link that we copied from Open Lab. So you can hit Control V, or you can right click and go to, You can also right click and do paste. You only have to do it once, but yeah, that's all you have to do. I don't want to see anything else here. I don't want you to write anything else in the comments. Don't put anything in the comments that should be on the blog post. Don't tell me, I don't know how to do this, or whatever. If you have a problem, you need to email me. All I want to see here is a link. All I want to see here is a PSD file. When you're done with that, you click Submit, and you're done. You're done with the assignment for the week. Let me know if you have any questions, if you run into any issues at any point in that process. We can talk over email, or we can meet in office hours and go over everything. So that's it for this week. Again, I know it's a lot. Next week, much shorter, but I will go through all of these steps each week just to make sure that you guys can follow along with everything. Okay, that's it from me. Have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you guys next Monday. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything you want to discuss.